Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. And this time I'm kind of rounding out the Kingsman series for now, technically, with Argylle. This is an action comedy spy film directed by Matthew Vaughn from 2024, and it stars Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, Henry Cavill, Ariana DeBose, John Cena, Dua Lipa, Samuel Jackson, and Sophia Boutella. In this film, when the plots of reclusive author Ellie Conway's fictional espionage novels begin to mirror the covert actions of a real-life spy organization, quiet evenings at home become a thing of the past. Accompanied by her cat Alfie and Aiden, a cat-allergic spy, Ellie races across the world to stay one step ahead of the killers as the line between Conway's fictional world and her real one begins to blur. So, what did I think of Argylle? Well, I've been kind of curious about this one because the concept I thought was pretty interesting and somewhat fresh. And it kind of reminded me of a movie that I actually quite like a lot that's kind of a romance, kind of action, kind of comedy film called Night and Day with Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise. It has kind of a similar vibe to it. Um, I'd say I still like that a bit more because it is a lot better paced, for sure. But I do enjoy this film. I enjoy it quite a bit more than The King's Man. I'm not sure it's up to Kingsman: The Golden Circle, because I'd say that one was definitely a bit better paced, even though it's around the same length. Um, but this film, even though it is like 20 minutes too long for sure, and there are certain issues, like production wise, I'd say, it's still a fun enough movie, and there were some pretty interesting sequences, interesting things that happened that I wasn't exactly expecting. I think Matthew Vaughn's a good director for that. And yeah, overall, I don't really get all the hate for it. But let me get to the cast. Bryce Dallas Howard plays Ellie Conway. She's a writer. Um, I'm not the hugest on Bryce Dallas Howard. She's the daughter of director Ron Howard. And I don't think she's bad here. I think she's decent. But she does have a few moments where she does get a bit annoying with the whole, like, sometimes she kind of does the, like, comedy thing that's kind of lazy of, like, oh, the woman makes a shrill noise because she's scared. And I'm glad they dropped that. By the second half, she gets a lot better in the second half. But yeah, also, this is going to be somewhat of a spoiler review because I have to talk about certain parts of the plot. So, spoilers, it's in the title, spoilers. Sam Rockwell plays Aiden Wild. He is the spy sent to protect her. I think he does a good job. He's hamming it up. He's clearly having fun in this role. I'd still say he doesn't get to the point he did in Seven Psychopaths, but I still think he's pretty good here. Bryan Cranston plays Director Ritter. He's the villain behind everything. He's pretty alright. He's a bit underdeveloped. Catherine O'Hara plays Ruth, Ellie Conway's mother. She's good at playing a mother. Henry Cavill plays Argylle. I like what he does with this performance, but he is not a main character, even though the movie is literally named after him. And on the poster, he is first billed, which is something I do need to talk about, which is really odd. Even though he's first billed, he only has about 10 minutes of screen time in the entire movie. So I like what he did with the performance. Apparently, he got $10 million for doing this role, which is insane. But yeah, even though I like him and I like what he did here, it's not a super big role. Ariana DeBose plays Kira. She's a part of Argylle's team in the book world. She's in the film, 2 minutes, maybe? She's there. John Cena, same thing as Wyatt, barely there. He's whatever. Dua Lipa plays Lagrange. who I'm guessing is a villain of Argylle's. She's in it for a minute and a half, I guess. Um, Samuel L. Jackson plays Alfie. He's kind of a hacker. He's, again, there. Not much done with his character, I will say. And Sophia Patella plays Saba al-Badir, who I'm guessing is supposed to be an old rival of our main character. She's fine, beautiful as always. But yeah, Argylle. This film has a bit of hate around it, I guess. People are saying it's a big waste of money. It doesn't look like it cost $200 million. Now, I kind of agree there. This film looks like it costs about the same as the other Kingsman films. There's nothing here that's really that impressive, like CG wise. Now, when I say that, I mean comparatively to the Kingsman films and the Kingsman, which were all around $100 million budget, and this being twice that, you'd expect a bit of a bump in certain aspects. Now, while I will say the action scenes here, for the most part, are not that impressive, or not, that's the wrong term, aren't as impressive as the first and second Kingsman films. There are two that I thought were actually pretty well done. There's a scene with our main character and Sam Rockwell's character, Bryce Dallas Howard's character and Sam Rockwell's characters, running around in these hallways fighting against this endless stream of bad guys, and there's like colored smoke that they're throwing, and they're kind of making it into a dance, and they're shooting as they're dancing, and I love that scene. I think that is a fantastically done action scene. Some people might think it's too much. Some people might think the CG smoke doesn't look good. I think it looks good enough for what they're going for. I like Matthew Vaughn's style here. It's definitely the most stylish action scene of the entire movie, and I did enjoy it. I had a dumb smile on my face, and I was laughing along with it. I had fun. And there's another scene like right after of her like putting these knives on the bottom of her boots and attaching a bayonet to a gun because they're in a room full where there's an oil spill, so nobody can shoot, or else it'll go up in flames. And she starts like using the shoes as skates and like skating around on the oil, like cutting into these guys, like, and it's not realistic. It's not. But I had fun watching it. It's fast paced, it's fun, it's frantic. I like the choreography here. And Bryce Dallas Howard looks like she's having fucking fun, which means I'm having fun. I wish more of the action scenes in this film were like that. I understand why there aren't as many like that, but I think a couple more like that would have bumped this up quite a bit. Because that's where you get this film at its best, is when it just lets loose and has fun. Which is something I think The King's Man had a bit of a hard time doing, because it wanted to go for this very different tone to the other Kingsman films. Even though it is an origin story and you know that there's going to be some tragedy, where there has been somewhat of tragedy in both the first and second Kingsman films. But for the most part, they didn't make it so downer that it literally became like depressing to watch. This film has a couple moments that are kind of like, oh fuck, like those types of moments, but at no point did I feel like the film got depressing. And it stayed at that level of kind of campy, like spy film, the type of spy film you'd get in the 80s and 90s, like the Bond movies of like Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan specifically, is what this film reminded me of. Like tone-wise, because you had a pretty goofy plot. A woman writing these spy novels, turns out she wrote something that was real, or that really happened, or everything happened, and there's a reason behind all that. And she's basically trying to outrun this government organization that wants to force her to finish the book to know how everything ends. And it's an interesting concept, and a lot of the things mirroring her real life. are in her books. It's an interesting concept, and I think the film does it pretty well. Um, but yeah, one thing I do have to talk about, or a few things I do have to talk about. I want to talk about what I don't think worked. The length. This film is 2 hours and 19 minutes. Even though I had fun with this film, it does drag quite a bit in the first half. There are certain moments that drag in the second half. There's certain fight scenes that I think, not fight scenes, but like just scenes that I think could have been cut down significantly, like scenes of exposition that could have been delivered a bit faster. I think you could have easily shaved like 20 minutes off of this film. Just make it flow better. There's some bits of CG that don't really work. Argylle the cat, or no, the cat's name is, wait, the cat's name is Alfie, because she has a cat for pretty much all the movie. Her cat is CGI for the entire film. I'm not a fan of that. I never have been a fan of that. I think if you're going to do something like this where there are times where the cat needs to be not real, like there's certain stunts or action sequences where it needs to be fake and running around in a certain way that you can't really get a cat to. You can't throw a cat off a building legally. I think they should have just used a real cat for the most part, like a trained cat, and used CG for the stuff, so that was a bit disappointing. And again, as someone who's a cat lover, it's a cute CG cat. It looks like good CG, but it's also very hard to do like full living animals. Like when it's something like Babe, where it's just like you're moving their mouth, it's fine because they're also mixing it in with puppets. They're using great attention to detail. Here it looks kind of video gamey. There are some CG effects that don't 100% work, like backgrounds that sometimes look a little wonky. Quite a lot of the cast that in the trailer featured pretty prominently are mostly cameos. Again, Henry Cavill, basically an extended cameo, 10 minutes about of screen time. He got paid $10 million for, which is insane again. Ariana DeBose is literally in it for 2 or 3 minutes. John Cena about 2 minutes. Dua Lipa about 2 minutes. Like literally, like most of the names on the poster are barely there to do anything. And again, Henry Cavill literally gets. It's kind of hard to see, but Henry Cavill and then Bryce Dallas Howard. Like I get it, Henry's more well known than Bryce Dallas Howard, but it just seems really weird to have him be first build, especially instead of the and. But there's also, I think the score is decent enough for the most part. There are certain bits of the score that are pretty great, but especially in like the middle and near the end, but it's not as memorable as the Kingsman score. But again, some things I can say are really good. The usage of music in this, I'm glad that it didn't go for the exact same feel as the Kingsman films, like having like an older rock song playing during certain action sequences or like a Rocky thing. It went more for a disco type of beat, which or did more for the disco genre, which I'm fine with. I think it works with how these action scenes feel more like a ballet dance in a way. Like they're very kinetic, just like the ones in the Kingsman films. They don't go for the same exact style. Oh yeah, one more con. While I still think Matthew Vaughn's direction is still pretty good here, especially with the camera work during the action sequences, not cutting too much, using interesting angles to get a fresh perspective on certain things. I'm not a fan of his overuse of this thing where it's like, Bryce Dallas Howard is looking at something and then she blinks and then that's the scene transition. They overuse this way too often. The thing where like she gets knocked out or she falls asleep and then she opens her eyes back up and it's a different scene. It's not his best direction. I think even the direction in the Kingsman was a bit better than this. There are still some really cool shots, especially in the action sequences in the second half. But yeah, it's not some of his best direction. I think his best direction in the series was in the first two Kingsman films. But yeah, this film, again, it gets the tone right for sure. It gets like this kind of fun, campy espionage tone, which is probably what I would have wished the Kingsman had done. You have, again, some pretty fun action sequences. Sam Rockwell doing some pretty cool stuff. Bryce Dallas Howard, who it turns out she is actually Argylle, like in real life. She was like, I already said spoiler alert, so she turns out to be Argylle instead of Argylle. She's Rachel Kylie, Kyllee, Kyle, so Argylle. And she like lost her memory after a bad job gone bad, and she was tricked into thinking Catherine O'Hara and Bryan Cranston are her parents when really they're bad people. So there's some fun action sequences concerning her. Again, the like colored smoke sequence and the one involving the oil, even though it is very clear that it is CG oil, because there are times where she like bends down, and actually my friend who I was like on a server watching this around there, he actually pointed that out, that when she got her knee down into the oil and got back up, she like there wasn't oil, which yes, that's a big oversight. But it was they were still very fun action sequences, pretty energetic for sure, very creative, and it fit with this tone. If it had kept the tone of like the Kingsman, and I think that's part of why Kingsman didn't fully work for me, is because it had this like very grounded war movie tone, and then it had some like super energetic action scene, and I just don't think that fits in that tone. But this one, it fits in the tone perfectly. You have a fun ending. You have a post-credit scene that sets up, I think, a new Kingsman movie, or maybe a continuation of this, even though this didn't do that well in theaters. But I don't know. Matthew Vaughn, like the Kingsman, didn't do that well, and this didn't do well. I'm hoping Kingsman: The Blue Blood actually comes out. But yeah, I did legitimately enjoy this film. I did. Even though, again, it is way over long, and certain effects don't really work, and maybe I'd want Bryce Dallas Howard recast, even though, again, she's decent enough. I still enjoyed the film to a good extent, so, yeah. I hope other people will have fun with it. But yeah. That was my review of Argylle. If you've seen the film, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, put them down there as well. And Movie Reviewer Next Door, out.